Somebody is asking, how do you find Muslims who are committed? And if you want to know Arabic, of course, committed Muslims who know the language to help you. I suggest that you should do that through the various Islamic centers. And if you're going frequently to the centers, participating in activities, I'm sure, inshallah, you'll be finding people like that. One question that pertained to a statement made yesterday that there is a hint in the Quran, it's actually more than a hint, pertaining to genetics, that the male contribution is the one that determines the sex of the fetus, which is a well-known fact today. And one brother or sister was asking the meaning of the hadith, إذا علا ماء الرجل ماء المرأة إلى آخره, that basically say that if the fluid of the man ala, I just use the term because that's the problem of interpretation. Ala literally could mean above, but it could also mean supersede, or it mean have overwhelm. There's something of a broader meaning to that. Then it would be a female by the would be a male by the power of Allah. And if the woman's is the one that supersedes, unnitha, that would be a female by permission of Allah. My humble reflection on this is that, as you know, things that are scarce would be things that are more important. You know, if you have something that's scarce, it becomes more important and more determining. Now, the sperms, all the sperms carry all the eggs or the ovaries carry the X chromosome. So it's plentiful. In other, all female eggs are the same. On the other hand, in the case of the sperms, as you know, some carry the X chromosome, other carry the Y chromosome. So ala here should not taken, as some people mistranslated, including some Muslim translators, ala that above in terms of just like physical, because there is no sense either physical. It's a fertilization, a sperm penetrating an ovum. So the way I understand it is that if the dominant factor is the one that is contributed by the male, that means for example, whether it's X or Y, then if the dominant factor is the male's contribution in a sense of being a carrier of Y chromosome, then the child would be a male. Allahu Alam, this is just one reflection on it, but you might get in touch with Dr. Moore here in Toronto and discuss the issue further with him. There were two related questions also. One, it says that recently one editor in the United States said that Yasser Arafat has broken a promise or ahd and did not follow the path that the Prophet ﷺ respected his commitment with Jews, maybe in reference to the recent difficulties in occupied Palestine. And the other question related to that, it says that who settled first in Palestine in view of the conflicting claims of Muslims and Jews, or Arabs and Jews, to Jerusalem and to Palestine? Let me take the second question first. That's basically a historical one. It is well known that when the Israelites left Egypt with Musa alayhi salam, and after the years of diaspora in Sinai, when they entered Palestine, or the area now that is was known as Canaan, this was not an area that is desolate with no population. There were people living there. These were the Canaanites that were defeated by the Jews, but still they lived there. When Christianity became predominant in Palestine, the same people, the Canaanites, some of them became Christians. So the Christians in that case in Palestine are not invaders. They are Canaanites who accepted Christianity. When Islam came, many of those Canaanites, whether they were Christians or others, accepted Islam. So it is a myth to say that Islam invaded, or the Muslims have no right in Palestine because the original Palestinians are Canaanites, are descendants of Canaanites who accepted Islam. But the myth that almost everybody accepts as a fact now is that Jews were there first in Palestine before these successive invasions of Muslims and Christians. This is a myth. The original Palestinians of today, who descended from Canaanites, have been there before any Jew even set foot on Palestine. This is one point. As far as the question of Ahd, I don't know how could anyone compare Yasser Arafat with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went to Medina, he was the ultimate authority there. So his commitment with the Jews are the commitment that any Muslim should give to Jews or Christians or others in terms of religious tolerance. It included provisions of respecting their property, their lives, their religious practice. It involved a mutual defense requirement that neither side should help the enemies against the other. It included also that the Prophet ﷺ would be the ultimate judge in any dispute that may arise. So he went in dignity. You compare that with what people call peace, P-E-A-C-E, and what I call peace, P-I-E-C-E, peace after peace after peace of Palestine given up. How could there be any comparison of that whatsoever? So a legitimate commitment or ahd or covenant that the Muslim gives as a head of state or as an individual, yes, you're obligated to fulfill it. But this is a void commitment if somebody who have no right to dispose of Muslim land, which is a trust in the hand of all Muslims, who act as an agent for others who are occupying and taking those lands, you have no right to give that. So how could that even be a legitimate commitment in the first place, let alone be asked as to whether he did not fulfill it? There's absolutely no comparison whatsoever. Some say that will be allowed to. I don't understand the question exactly, but the gist, if I'm not wrong, basically ask about those Christian evangelists who appear on TV and say that that they're working to help the occupying forces occupying the land of Palestine, because if that happened, that would hasten the coming back of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Maybe the thing that they don't know, that when Isa alayhi salam comes down, he will actually be joining the Muslims in fighting against the forces of evil or the false Messiah. This is the part that is missing, an important one indeed. One says, I read in a verse in the Quran that says there are aliens. Is this true? I think I answered that question yesterday. No, I am not familiar with any ayah in the Quran that definitively say there are aliens or ETs somewhere else, or it doesn't. It is a matter that is that's not mentioned one way or the other. We get that, the last one before I come to my dear brother, and I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. We get the Quran in many ways those days, for example, in video and audio cassettes. We know we're not supposed to take inside the washroom or a dirty place. What do we do when we're listening to a cassette and we're in a dirty place? Of course, for the dignity of the Quran, you wouldn't keep your cassette while you're in the washroom. I think this is something that just with an Islamic sense one can realize that this is not correct. But of course, as a basic rule, they say that you should not take anything that has the name of Allah on it. Of course, the hadith seem to apply to something that is written, but out of respect, I think it could be extended also to that. The ulama also made the exception to that, based on the basic rule of Sharia also of weighing harm and benefit. If you're afraid of something could get lost, like imagining going to some washroom here in Canada and taking off your gold necklace that has the name of Allah and leaving it on next to the sink and come out and expect to find it again. Obviously, there are cases like that where there should be exception, but if one try to avoid that, it's better to leave something in the car or whatever to avoid that. I'll go back to my brother here before coming to this new question because you've been waiting. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
we have a problem in this city and all over North America, which is masjids that's being built in the name of nationalism. So the loyalty comes to the nationality that builds the masjid. It's not to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, there are masjids that deny the children to study Quran. I'm not going to name any masjid. Yet we have churches that allows immigrants and refugees to study Quran in their own churches.
Yeah.
It's very sad that it's very rampant in this city.
Jazakallah khair ya akhi for raising that issue, because this is one of the diseases that has nothing to do with Islam. There is nothing called Guyanese masjid or Pakistani masjid or Arabian masjid. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ مَنَعَ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ أَنْ يُذْكَرَ فِيهَا اسْمُهُ وَسَعَى فِي خَرَابِهِ. Even though that applies to the Kaaba, but it could extend that who is more wrongdoer than one who prevent the mosques of Allah, that the name of Allah would be mentioned in it and seek its destruction. So I hope, inshallah, that those who are not aware of that should remember that this asabiyya or nationalism or ethnocentric attitudes is what the Prophet ﷺ called muntina. It's rotten, so leave it. A Muslim should leave that. And I hope, inshallah, that as we become more committed Islamically, I hope that this asabiyyas, inshallah, will disappear. I apologize that it's already past 12:15 and my flight is 1:05, so pray that I don't miss it. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.